Edgar Allan Poe.
It seems my writing has become the inspiration for an actual killer.
Are there other stories in the collection?
Many?
Specifically about murder?
I'm afraid so.
I challenge the brilliant mind of Edgar Allan Poe, a game of wits.
You know, it is kind of funny that, as you pointed out, Coase, like the cover to this poster for The Raven does look a lot like the Crow movie poster. Yeah. It's like, no, this is more serious than The Crow. This is The Raven.
Well, yeah. And they're like, it's another black bird. It'll work. Exactly. It'll be fine.
The sad thing is that actually some people showed up in Crow makeup to the midnight movie we were at, and when they realized what the fuck they were watching, they're like, whoa, no.
Those just goths who already worship Poe as it is.
This is vengeance from before the grave.
See, what makes me laugh about looking at the poster, this poster is indicative of this entire idea where somebody was just kind of like really grasping at straws to try to pull something together. It was like, look, Edgar Allan Poe, the original master of horror, sort of, and what if we have a mystery? Like we'll take 7, but actually put Poe in it.
Yeah, we'll make Poe a detective.
Yeah.
And he can unravel his own mystery that he created.
And some guy said, like, but that has nothing to do with the actual history. And they said, get out.
Yeah.
Well, I will hand it to them. I mean, like, the actual way, like, Poe died and everything, is a mystery around exactly what happened, because he was delirious, was just talking nonsense, and then died shortly afterwards. They don't really know what happened to him in his final days.
He was broke.
Well,
and an alcoholic.
All right.
I don't think that's that big of a mystery to
Leon,
it.
try and have a little imagination here.
But you
are not giving any room, and you got to give a little. Come
but you
on.
know what? They do use a key point, which is like this story probably wouldn't take place. Which if they didn't have that one little tidbit of information, that one name that Poe uttered while he was dying, which nobody understood. Like, okay,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? And you could tell they took that little the guy who decided to make League of Extraordinary Gentlemen a film was like, hey, we could use that and we could really create a whole other world of fantasy based on that little bit of information.
I don't have a problem with that at all in the context.
No,
there's a huge history, probably 100 years worth of literature that does this exact same thing all the time. Like, well, we don't really know what happened, so let's make up a really awesome story to fit in between the cracks. So what? So it gets a little carried away. The problem that the Raven does have is the fact that this super ridiculously elaborate plan that this guy has, who is to keep Edgar Allan Poe on his toes, is so implausible and unworkable.
Yes, yes it is.
I mean, even to the point where, like, on every single segment, for no reason, he's like hanging around, and then flees, and everybody's shooting at him. There's like 30 cops shooting, and apparently his plan involved everyone going to the stormtrooper school.
Yes, as long as they can't hit me with their ancient muskets, I should be fine. Everything will work out just fine.
I love those scenes because Darkman decided to show up and play the villain for a little while. Yeah.
I know, right? He looked just like him.
Well, I was waiting for the whole helicopter chase scene.
The story is such follows. John Cusack is Edgar Allan Poe. First off, like, I did ask around about the accent, because people are like, shouldn't he have had some sort of accent? It's like,
he was American.
I was like, pretty much no, he was American. Yeah. It's like the 19th century Maryland. Guess what?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had a British accent. It would have been
they might have had something slight,
right.
but
it was not going to sound like The Wire.
Right.
Hey, you know what?
It shouldn't sound like John Cusack's Chicago accent for sure.
Sure, fair enough.
But you know what? I didn't give a fuck.
That didn't really bother me.
No, I can let that go.
At no point did it sound like, hey, he doesn't sound like he's from there.
Right.
So, whatever. Anyway, it's towards the end of his life. He's a complete alcoholic. I mean, he's a pathetic alcoholic.
Yeah.
One of those guys begging people for drinks, starting fights in bars with people, just being a complete obnoxious prick.
He's both.
But you know, he's
wow.
He's a productive alcoholic. That's now that's something to be admired.
Well,
you can drink and write some shit.
Well, formerly a productive alcoholic, because like at this point he's well known for a bunch of stories, like his horror stuff. But he's like almost like, I don't want to write that stuff anymore, or I can't write that stuff anymore.
I just want to do poems.
Yeah, I just want to write love sonnets, and people are like, no, Poe. And the reason is because he is in love with a new girl, like this, what's her name? Alice Eve? Is that it, I believe?
Alice Eve.
Who is plays Emily, and she is the daughter of a rich nobleman played by Brendan Gleeson, who wants nothing to do with Edgar Allan Poe, and certainly
And
nothing.
why would he?
Yeah, exactly. And why would he? Because he is a total fucking loser.
Isn't that goddamn pedophile who ended up marrying his 13-year-old cousin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's him, all right.
Right, exactly. Well, when some murders start turning up that are based clearly exactly on Edgar Allan Poe short stories, the police immediately sort of bust down his door saying, "Hey, motherfucker, what the hell? I know you haven't got any work for a while, but Jesus Christ. Is this murder mystery theater?" But it turns out with Luke Evans as Inspector Emmett Fields, the head of this, very smart, eccentric police officer who's investigating this. But it's obvious early on it's not him, but in fact is a killer who wants to lead Poe into it, to challenge his intellect.
Yes.
And he does this by kidnapping his fiancée, and as we see, burying her underground with a time limit before she dies. They must follow one killing to the next and decipher the clues so they can get to poor Emily in time. And that's about as much more drama than that is actually in the movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I don't know, it's kind of a tired idea. It's like, yeah, it seems original at first, like, oh, you're putting Edgar Allan Poe in this actual mystery. But the longer it goes on, the more you go like, wow, I feel like I saw this movie 20 years ago with it was just nobody, and you're just kind of rehashing this plot, but you've crowbarred Edgar Allan Poe and these ancient sets into it. Yeah. And the thing, for me, the problem was that except for in the beginning, John Cusack never really made me feel like it was Edgar Allan Poe. He doesn't really have the look because he's wearing a goatee instead of like a little Hitler mustache, for one thing. And it's just like the more it went on, it was just like, this is kind of just a generic, one of these mysteries. Like I compared it to Seven, but that's being really generous.
Well, I compared it more to From Hell. That's honestly, like, that's the feeling I got watching this, and I have to admit I enjoyed From Hell a little bit more, but I did. It's one of those things where John Cusack. I saw this Edgar Allan Poe play done by Jeffrey Combs, which he was phenomenal. And I was like, wow, this guy, because I remember hearing about The Raven getting ready to go into production. I'm like, they need to get Jeffrey Combs to do
Sure, because he's traveling with a one-man show.
Oh, yeah. And he fucking nails it. He nails it. The thing is, like, when they announced John Cusack, I was like, okay, the guy from Better Off Dead, all right, maybe we'll see. He's a good actor. And so I started.
Like, I've done things since then.
I might give him a little more credit than that.
But people like me usually don't give a shit. But the thing is that watching him, I was really like kind of paying attention because I was already starting to like want to just like it should have been Jeffrey Combs, and I was actually surprised how much he really like took it and he did make it his own. But I love the parts where he's just a pissed off fucking alcoholic who wants his shit to get published. He gets mad at his publishers, like, what the fuck is this? And and I definitely thought that he sold the character on me. But the thing is, he made those scenes that he was in really enjoyable.
Why must we assume that? Because it's more convenient to do so? Why am I to blame? Where were all these officers last night? Where were you? He told you he was coming!
Mr. Poe, listen to me. This killer is methodical. He will keep her alive to keep you involved. It's part of his game.
Now, as far as the rest of the movie, though, it was like, wow, he was really doing his best to carry that goddamn movie because, there wasn't anything all that amazing going on besides look, it's somebody copycatting a scene from one of his stories.
I would like to say for the record, it actually would be accurate to say, Jeffrey Combs, you mean that guy who was in The Reanimator? And that was really about it?
Hey, come on. Grosse Pointe Blank, you didn't see that?
Yeah. You didn't hear him
2012?
in Batman when he played the Scarecrow? Man.
But no, you're right, Coast, when you're talking about like the way the murders themselves and the setup, and even just the way it's filmed, this is by James McTeague, who did V for Vendetta, which I thought he did a great job with that.
Oh, yeah.
But then turned around and fucked up Ninja Assassin like nobody.
Oh, that's right. That was him. Yeah.
Just totally screwed the pooch on that one.
Well, you couldn't see it. That was the problem.
And this is a definite improvement. Even so, it's just so styleless. It's okay. It's so bland. It's practically television type stuff. You know, it feels like they didn't really have much of a budget at all. It never really goes, but so gory. And even when it does, it's kind of extreme close-ups, and you never really feel affected by it. It's like it's not 7. It's more like 1.
3.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm willing to give it 3.
Yeah, it just, you know what I mean? And then you have the fact that in 7, all those murders, everything that happened within the realm of possibility.
Oh, yeah.
You watch it and you're like, okay, this guy with the way movie explains everything to you, this was possible to have been pulled off just like this. And that's part of what your amazement is with that film, the way it's all set up. With here, right from the get-go, it's like either this guy is the luckiest guy on the planet, or you're just watching a mediocre film.
It's also one of these films, these murder mysteries, where you really only have about 8 characters in the whole thing. So it's pretty easy to narrow it down to who it could be. Yeah. It comes down to being one of 2 guys. And so when it turns out to be, one of the 2, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, once he's revealed, he just turns into the Joker all of a sudden.
I know. I didn't.
I mean, like, they took it. It's one of those things where they just took it too far. It's like they had a thin idea and they wanted to stretch it. They didn't want to go as far as Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which I can appreciate that, because you don't need to have too many of those.
That's too much style.
Yes, too much style. But here it was like, man, you guys are trying to make this into something, and I kind of want to go with you, but it's just not there. You don't have it. You're not doing it. What you say about Cusack? You know what? He kind of reminded me. It's like at those times when he was Nicolas Cage in Out. I kind of dug that.
Yeah,
it was fun to watch.
Yeah, me too.
But the it did that early on, and then the more it got away from that and got into the plot, the less I was enjoying it.
I will say, though, that I felt as it got towards the end, and even with the way that, as silly as it is with the villain, there's a very nice confrontation sequence towards the end that I thought Cusack uses to great effect. Like his performance during these last sequences, I thought was especially good and even kind of touching.
Yeah,
I found myself kind of maybe a little misted up,
really,
just a little bit. Yeah, I was like, and it was entirely due to his performance, though. It really was.
No, you're right. You're right.
You got to hand the movie that much, at least. It did turn around enough where I was like, okay, I admit, I kind of liked it.
Well, the movie's it does definitely start to drag when you just realize that, okay, they're just kind of doing this like a procedural, and it's like, yeah, you've seen this 100 times, and they're not doing anything new with it. And especially when you're introduced to the villain, it's like, those are your motives? Really?
Right.
So, okay, this would have made more sense if, you had like a team, like a group of fans, It's like more like a group of fanatics that, it would have made a lot more sense, because it's still, the whole time I was wondering, how in the fuck did he get that fucking pendulum? It's like, where did he contrive that up? I mean, come on. It's
especially when you consider, like, when you find out who it is and you know what they do for a living, you're like, I'm sorry.
Where'd you get the money for that?
Where did you get the money to do all that shit?
He's like a fucked up Bruce Wayne or something. You just fucking make contraptions and everything with a blink of an eye.
I think I would have liked it more if they had really spent more time just delving into Poe, like the Poe, places they hit. Well, just they hit the Raven and the Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah,
those are the only 2 stories people know.
Right. Yeah, they mentioned something from Telltale Heart.
They touch over a lot of it, but those are the 2.
But they just barely touch it. I'm like, look, if you're gonna do this, really get people to know about Poe.
Let's see these tableaus played out in a really interesting way.
Because I was like, this is a template where you could have taken this, you could have made it Stephen King. You could have made it any other mystery writer who was on the, following by somebody who's, using their books to do crimes. It's like, you're not making it Poe specific enough.
The idea of this, I always think, man, a lot of these like stories like this, a lot of them have to give some kind of credit to Alan Moore as far as what he did with The Extremely Ordinary Gentleman,
right?
Where he can take all that mythos about these characters.
Actually, that's extra oily.
I'm sorry. I get that so confused now.
I got to maintain the copyright.
Yeah, since you guys fucked that up for me. Yeah.
Didn't you know that we're written by Alan Moore?
Wow, I should listen more. But the thing is that I love how he takes the mythos of those characters and he integrates it in the story and really takes it to like the extreme of like what those people would probably really be like in real life, which something they really should have explored more with this movie, because it made me just wonder, wow, I would love to see this idea played out if Alan Moore wrote it.
Yeah, and it's weird because McTeague being known for his adaptation of an Alan Moore book, and he's so close to that, it's like, come on, couldn't you have called Alan Moore up and asked him for some pointers or?
Yeah, it's something, because it definitely felt so rushed, and I feel bad. Okay, the other reason why I was kind of looking forward to this, because I really like this guy Luke Evans.
I like Luke Evans too.
He plays Inspector Emmett Fields, who's actually assisting Poe. Poe is assisting him while he's trying to investigate these crazy murders. But it's like, man, it's another movie with this guy to where he just can't seem to get in some kind of vehicle to where he's really going to shine, because I think the guy's a great actor.
He's in The Hobbit, for the record.
Oh, well,
hopefully
hopefully they'll fix that fucking, like...
He's not playing an int, is he?
Yeah, I know. Hopefully they'll fix those frame rates or whatever the fuck they're arguing about right now.
It just says Bard.
I don't know.
Maybe he has a tail.
I don't know. But, I hope, because I love watching that guy perform. I mean, I think he's a great actor. I think he definitely has like a lot of screen presence. And with this, it also seemed like he was really trying to like milk whatever they were giving to him.
Yeah,
and they just didn't use him effectively though, because that would have made the film work more. If you're not going to like really dive into what this villain is and why he's really doing this, what are his real motives, explore that a little bit. Then explore the relationship that this inspector is having with Poe and his stories. He could be like a fan who just doesn't give a shit, and see how that dynamic plays out.
And every time they touched on it, I liked it.
Yeah, that was.
But they would only touch, like everything that was good. They would just touch it and then move on.
I felt like you wanted
just a tip.
You wanted to like Poe more than the movie would let you like him, and it would just barely touch on stuff. Then you're like, well, what about developing this relationship between these two men? It seems like that's the most possibly interesting thing in the film, because when it starts off, the detective's like, fuck that guy, and then as it goes along, he's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to work with him. But along the film, they're like relying on each other, and there's never a good reason why. In fact, there's even a scene later on where Poe's just being a little brat, just screeching, and the guy's still putting up with him. I'm like going, did you have to do it that way? I mean, couldn't we earn some sort of redemption for Poe towards the end of his life here? But the movie never, outside of, like I said, a kind of touching ending, it never really convincingly gives that to you. And that cop is just kind of useless. He's just there because I guess they figured the audience believe there's no way Poe could have done this on his own.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And what you say about, you mentioned a touching ending, I would stress that that's not the ending. It's right before. Well, and you're right. And that is a great scene. And I only bring that up because the actual ending, the last scene, just really made me go like, wow.
That's all you got?
Yeah. It's like where I was still kind of vacillating on where I would end it. That put the period on it.
I was almost hoping they would find a way to throw in some sort of like, okay, and then he went on to become some other serial killer.
I know, right?
And I really wish they would have let that play out.
Yeah.
Because, all I'm thinking is like, oh, he's Jack the Ripper now.
Or something.
Yeah, the Boston Strangler.
Yeah, who knows?
So I don't know my dates, and I'm sure.
I know. We talk about people who were dead by the time they came around.
Exactly. You're like, that's not even possible.
And he became the Zodiac Killer.
He became Charles Whitman.
You guys should rename yourself the League of Not Knowing Gentlemen.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give my rating on this one, which is that, like, even though this, like, I would say the first half of this movie, I was pretty bored all the way through it. I was going, okay, it's not that Cusack's doing a bad job. They just haven't given him much to do, really.
Yeah.
And certainly, I don't give that much of a crap about the character and I should. It's fucking Edgar Allan Poe, but he's just such a whiny little brat. You want to smack him. But as it went on into the second half, I did start getting slightly more involved in it. And like I said, outside of the epilogue, I did enjoy the last 10 or 15 minutes of it, even quite a bit. Still not enough to bring you back around to saying that this movie is good per se, but it's worth a high rental, I would say.
Yeah, I was struggling to stay awake in this movie, and he was with me, and sometimes something interesting would happen, and I'd kind of be up for it. But it didn't take long to peter out and just go back to what it was. Like I said, from the beginning, it was the kind of idea where somebody presents you with it, and you go like, I don't know. How are you going to pull that off? And if their eyes light up and they go like, wait, let me tell you. Maybe you've been for a good ride. You're like, you know what? You're going to surprise me. This is not that movie that surprises you. This is that one where you start to go like, you know what, you guys, I told you this was a bad idea, and you didn't have enough to back it up. There's just enough good things in it to keep me from giving it some old bullshit, but it's just kind of a rental.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is rental, because I think the most exciting moments of this film is when I looked over at you and I went, "Hey!" Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I did enjoy John Cusack portrayal much more than I thought I would. Even though the story was, pretty generic. I mean, there was times when I was definitely with it at times, I'm like, oh, they're going to get him now. They're going to get Darkman. It's like, it's going to be Bruce Campbell when they reveal it. Yeah. But, as it played, I'm like, it's okay. It's not killing me to watch it, but yeah, it did half the time. It just made me like think, wow, what would I would have done with this kind of story, especially if they're just going to give themselves liberty to explore this character and make him that much more bigger than life. And it made me think, wow, like I said, I would love for Alan Moore to get his hands on this. But just, the thing is, it did remind me a lot of From Hell in the where I enjoyed the sets, I enjoyed the atmosphere of it at times, but it was still at the end of it, you're just kind of like, okay, right? So, yeah, but it's just a rental for me. Yeah, it's just a rental.
Nah, it's a real shame. People throwing away a perfectly good American white boy like that.
But hey, we'll get another chance. I think this is like the 8th or 9th Raven movie that they've.
Are you serious?
They've done. Oh yeah. There's a number of them. I was trying to look up the.
Oh, I thought you meant there were more coming.
No. But I mean, there's been more of these films before. So I'm looking forward to seeing somebody do it right. I don't know if there's a definitive Edgar Allan Poe movie that you have to see, but I'm still waiting for it. I think the guy's fascinating because there sure is no way in hell I'm gonna read all his shit. So it's like make a movie of it real quick because I love the idea of,
to be fair, if they had twisted this plot a little bit, it would have made the beginning of a Crow movie, like a classic era Crow movie. It's
I can almost see that.
Oh yeah,
you're right. You're right.
It so close. Just barely be a Crow movie.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the sequel, Raven 2.
It'd probably be fucking Eric Bana or something like that.
I'll send you to